Hey, what's happening? It's Bill Smith. Today I'm going to talk about this guy over here, Victor Vekselberg, part of Ehud Barak's business network, including Nicole Junkermann and Jeffrey Epstein. So one thing I didn't mention in this last video is that Nicole Junkermann and Jeffrey Epstein own 100% of the preferred stock for this company that's going to manage emergency services over in the UK. Now, if you wanted to take a second to go look, there are articles out there in the UK that says that if you are white, they are not going to prioritize you to get ambulance services. They want to focus on helping out minorities only. So they've already admitted what they're about to do. These two people, Nicole Junkermann and Jeffrey Epstein, both working on behalf of Israel and the MOSSAD, are trying to make that an even harder thing to get through, because they're going to run emergency services. So that's what that was all about. I covered that in the last video. Ehud Barak is running for president, prime minister of Israel today. But this guy over here, this guy named Victor Vekselberg, is a Russian billionaire. Technically he's Ukrainian, but they call him a Russian oligarch billionaire. All right, now before I go any further, I want to mention, even apologize maybe, if I've confused you on that last video. I don't like Tommy Robinson. All right, let me just make it clear. I don't like Tommy Robinson, and you shouldn't either. Because if Tommy Robinson wants to advocate on a nationalist movement for Britain, which is what he says he's going to do, he doesn't need to tell you that Israel is great. He doesn't need to fight for Israel, and they don't need to have the Israeli flag flying at a Britain nationalist movement called the English Defense League. So when Tommy Robinson gains control of something called the English Defense League, okay, and then every time they're in public, he waves an Israeli flag, that should cause you to question at least something, okay? So I don't like Tommy Robinson. I don't care if he's legit or not. He's funded by the Mossad. He's a Mossad asset. He's admitted it. That's what the video was about. I was trying to show you that he says he's Jewish. He says he's a Mossad agent. And Tommy Robinson is somehow head of the nationalist movement in the UK. So put two and two together, man. Like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings or fool you or trick you, but if I've given you kind of a harsh reply in the comment section, it's nothing personal, okay? It's just, that's where I'm at now. So I talked about Nicole Junkermann in the last video, connections with Jeffrey Epstein. Nicole Junkermann is a Mossad asset, and the reason why she flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane one-on-one was not to have sex, because Jeffrey Epstein doesn't like grown women no matter how good looking they are. He likes children. They flew one-on-one on that plane because Epstein was recruiting Nicole Junkermann as a Mossad asset. Nicole Junkermann is extremely intelligent. She's super smart. She's gorgeous. She's an ex-model, and she knows like 7 languages. So if you're the Mossad, there's no better person to recruit than someone like her. Moving on. Just as an aside, this is kind of a buddy of mine. We used to be friends. I haven't talked to her in a while, but shout out to Tiffany. You can find her at @Tiff_Fitzhenry. She's built a pretty good page on Twitter. She covers some of the Hollywood angle stuff. She got a pinned post about Bella Thorne. I think this was fake. I think it was designed as a distraction. There's no reason to write a book and then not name a single name. Everybody knows it's a problem. Name a name or shut the fuck up. That's where I'm at. Name a name or shut the fuck up. Go away. Go do something else. She wrote a book, didn't name names, did some interviews, and told everybody she was a pansexual. So it looks like a distraction to me. That's all I'm saying. This took us farther away than where we needed to be. So I just wanted to drop this in there. Check out Tiffany on Twitter. All right, now if you want to check out this video, I haven't watched it, but this guy named Johnny Vedmore is the one who kind of blew the whistle. He put the whole story together. He deserves credit for getting Nicole Junkermann's name out there in the public. VOAT has been down for like 4 or 5 days. It got DDOS'd again last night. It's aggravating because VOAT's my favorite site. It's the best place to get truth nowadays. So I want to say thanks to Johnny for putting this together. Thanks for Richie for putting him on your show. And this is kind of what started the whole thing, so shout out to these guys. All right, now into the good stuff. All right, so this is Nicole Junkermann's search on the offshore leaks, excuse me. And this was the Panama Papers. So she's listed in here twice as an individual. Now, what's interesting is there's two different spellings for her name. One is lowercase and one is all caps. So the top one is her as a person, and the bottom one is her as a legal entity. Now, when people talk about how we're all living in a debt-based enslavement society, they don't mean you personally, not you as a human. They mean you as a legal entity with an all-capitalized name. So if you check your social security card, you will see that your name is in all caps. They own you as a corporate entity, not as you as a human being. So that's the difference there. I just thought I'd toss it in there because some people are unsure about that. So this is some stuff that she's tied into. If you want to kind of click around here on the leaks database, she ties into this place called Copeland Securities, Inc. And this guy named Sandrine Zerbib. I'm not going to go into the details here. I'm just going to show you that there's information over here you can find. Interesting, though, it comes up is she's connected to this guy named Robert Louis Dreyfus. Now, this guy was a French businessman who had success as the CEO of Adidas and Saatchi. This is European stuff. He was also deeply involved in European football, and I believe that this is how Johnny Vedmore tied him into the FIFA scandal. Robert Louis Dreyfus is dead, but he was Jewish. And what's interesting is that he's the cousin of this woman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Elaine from Seinfeld. So I used to love Seinfeld. It was my favorite show forever. But now looking back, I hate it, and I hate them for what they did. They're subversive. They used a laugh track to pass off poor comedy, and everybody ate it up. And Seinfeld is one of the dirtiest people I can imagine because he's involved in comedy, and he's so smug about it. And I don't know if you know this, but he openly dated like a 17-year-old when he was like 40-something. It was illegal, and they let him do it. Like the entire American public just gave him a pass on it. So, you know, I don't know if that makes you a pedophile or not. 17 is kind of a blurred ground because state law is 16 in most states. But I just want to show you that these people are tied in. It's like a giant spider web of layers, and it goes through Russian oligarchs and leaders of the FIFA scandal and Hollywood actors, and these people are all Jewish. And I don't have a problem with them as being Jewish. I just have a problem with the Jewish identity and the Jewish religion. The Jewish religion is based on blood. So I don't know if you know that, but there's this thing called the Caparo, where these Jews get together and they shake a chicken over their head, and then they sacrifice it on the street. And they say that that cleanses them of the sins of this year. So I can't get behind that stuff. What people don't understand about what Jesus was trying to accomplish was Jesus showed up right when the oral tradition was beginning to be written down, and he fought against the Pharisees. And the reason why he did the Last Supper was because he said, this is the new blood sacrifice ritual that Christians will do. Because no one has to be killed. You don't have to sacrifice a goat. You don't have to torture a kid to get the elixir of life out of them. All that stuff is codified in the Talmud. So if you go look up Holocaust in the Talmud, it's a burnt offering. It literally means burnt offering, where they take a bird or something, and they cut it open, and they bleed it out on an altar, and then they burn it. And they have 3 different types of these things. There's a burnt offering, there's a sin offering, and then there's a peace offering. And they all work differently, but generally they sacrifice something. The highest ability to sacrifice being a human being, generally a Christian. So that's where the blood libel stuff comes from. All right, now on to this guy named Viktor Vekselberg. He is a Ukrainian-born Russian businessman. He's the owner and president of the Renova Group, a large Russian conglomerate, and according to Forbes, he's worth $14 billion, making him the 4th richest person in Russia. He was one of the 7 Russian oligarchs hit by U.S. sanctions earlier this year. Sorry, last year. So this is from April 6, 2018. This is about a year ago, a year and a few months. He is tied to the Clinton Foundation. So I told you that he's the leader of Renova Group, and there it is, Renova Group. And they donated between $50,000 and $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Now this is where it gets interesting. If you have paid attention to Vladimir Putin, he says Russia didn't engage in anything seedy in the U.S. Elections. He said it was all done by Clinton donors. So this was Putin trying to signal that people who are connected to the Clinton Foundation, who seem to be Russian, are the ones who did it. So this is Russia themselves trying to root him out in a bribery probe. This is from 2016, right before the election, 3 years ago, and it says Russian law enforcement officers investigating bribery allegations detained 2 senior executives who work for billionaire Viktor Vekselberg, one of a dwindling group of tycoons who built their fortunes independently of the Kremlin. And here they are. This is Russia themselves trying to root this guy out. All right, so this is a recent article. This is just like 2 weeks ago. This is on the Gateway Pundit, and it says, the real collusion. Russian oligarch who ran propaganda against Trump was a donor to the Clinton Foundation. And this is the oligarch Viktor Vekselberg, who invested in Trump-critical online media during the 2016 campaign. When they talk about Russian collusion, this is what they're talking about. This is it. This is the, I believe that this is like the epicenter, and I think that this is why VOAT has been taken down. This is why they don't want you to see this, because I honestly think that this is like one of the, this is one of the kernels of truth that this all springs out of. So it says that Vekselberg also bought a share in the far-left anti-Trump Gawker media. And this is what Peter Thiel and Hulk Hogan were up against. I'm not really going to go into this. It's just interesting. But what is even more interesting is this Vekselberg guy, this Russian billionaire, was questioned by Mueller's investigators. Federal agents working with special counsel stopped a billionaire Russian businessman, Viktor Vekselberg, at a New York area airport this year. This is last year. U.S. sought to punish Russia last month for its election interference and other aggressions. It targeted some of Russia's wealthiest men, imposing sanctions on those viewed as enriching themselves off of Vladimir Putin's government. All right, so here's the best part. This is the MoscowProject.org/players/Viktor Vekselberg, and they put together a great timeline. So the earliest point of this timeline, December 10th, 2010, this is right before, this is before the election. It says Mike Flynn attends a RT gala in Moscow. Then January 30th, 2018, White House releases a list of Russian oligarchs. Then the Treasury imposed new sanctions on these Russian oligarchs, government officials, and related entities. Then just a few weeks later, New York Times reports that the special counsel did in fact question Viktor Vekselberg, followed by 4 days later a report that confirmed that Michael Cohen received money from Vekselberg-connected firm after the inauguration. So once they lost the election, they tried to get into the White House, and they used Donald Trump's Jewish lawyer Michael Cohen as a connector, which backfired. So then a few weeks later, New York Times revealed that the meeting between Cohen, Vekselberg, and this guy named Entrater all took place. So I'm not going to talk about Entrater in this video, but I just want to mention his name. He is in that meme that we started with. VOAT has been taken down to keep this information from coming out, which means it's ultra damaging, and the fact that Q hasn't posted it shouldn't keep you from making a video about it or talking about it online. Now, this is the third time that I've had to cut this video because the first 2 times, both times I tried to create the video, it broke, which means that there's something happening here. That's something I've never encountered. I've shot 300 videos. So please help me out here. Talk about Nicole Junkermann. Talk about Viktor Vekselberg. And do us all a favor and stand up for VOAT. Until next time, this is Bill Smith. Thanks for watching.